Here we are. It is Thursday. The sun in the UK is shining. Hopefully, we're all filled with some sort of like Olympic motivation. I know I am. However, I don't know anybody else who's been watching the Olympics. Does it absolutely terrify you if they fall off the horse and fall off the side of like their bikes? Because I started watching it, people were like falling off, and it made me very worried. So I'm not very risk averse, it turns out. Ben, have you been watching the Olympics at the moment?
I've been watching parts of it. Yeah, my son's hooked on skateboarding, basketball, parkour, gymnastics. So yeah,
Wow.
we've been cherry picking which bits they're watching, but I've not been following it closely enough. It's just been a crazy rush to get work done before people start disappearing for the summer. So the Olympics has come at a bad time for me. Next week would have been better.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. Like I did a LinkedIn post just yesterday saying I think that the market is going to dramatically pick up in September. Hence why we're doing this stuff and having this session today, because I think this is going to be a really good intro and a really good sort of like getting the level pegging field, getting the basics right, ready for when that candidate and contact rush comes in hopefully a few weeks' time. So look, whilst we're waiting for everybody to join, Ben and I will quickly introduce ourselves. So my name is Holly. I am the founder and optimizer at Restack, and we have also another product called Automation Station, which helps deliver automations to Bullhorn Automation customers. For those of you who don't know me, I'm all about making use of your existing products and the existing tech that you already have within your business. And of course, email plays a really, really big part in that. I'm not an email expert, but thankfully, last year I met somebody who is. So Ben, over to you. Give us a bit of insights about what you do.
Hi everyone. Yeah, Ben Fielding. I run Quinset. We're essentially email delivery specialists. I'm a proper email delivery nerd. Have been forever since. Well, I should tell you that IT systems and email systems I work with. Show you how old I am. But I'm an absolute email delivery geek. So yeah, I run Quinset. I also work with a company called NextGen IT, who are a managed service provider. I'm a technology strategist. I'm essentially a fractional CTO at heart. So technology strategist and solution designer.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. So let's get into this. And I have no doubt over the course of this, Ben's going to share a couple of horror stories from my personal emails that he's been looking at. So let's start from the basics. Now, am I right in thinking that what we're going to cover in this topic today is going to be relative for if you are in the US, UK, Germany, Europe, Google or Microsoft, or are there differences depending on location or email provider?
It's all the same, essentially. It's all basically technically the same. There's some nuances to some countries, but not really relevant to on the whole. I mean, 99% of what we'll cover today, no matter what email platform you use, be it 365, Google Workspace, even using like the basic email you get with GoDaddy or 123 Reg, right? All this stuff's still relevant.
Okay, brilliant. That's very good to know. So shortly we're going to cover like the creation of these emails and subject lines, emojis. I've got some questions for you about that. But before we even worry about that, before we even write the emails, what do we need to do? What should we be doing as business owners or leaders to get this stuff out the door and set up properly?
So the core of all email systems sits a set of rules. And these rules have evolved over the last 30 years or so as email has become indispensable in business. You go back 15 years, 10 years even, pretty much anyone can send any email from any system and pretend to be another domain. This was definitely seen as a bit of an issue as email spoofing and hacking and phishing became a real issue. So a set of rules have become embedded into the world of email deliverability, and there's three phrases that every recruiter should have heard of by now because it's been rammed down their throats for the past year by Google: SPF, DKIM, and DMARC.
Okay, so if you're listening to this, write them down: SPF, DKIM, and DMARC.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So any email platform you're setting up, you need to go and make changes to your domain. So you buy a domain from a domain registrar, might be from your IT company, might be GoDaddy, might be Ionos or whatever. you've got access in there to your DNS, and you need to go and set up certain things, and you'll be kind of guided to do this most of the time well, but guided to do this by whoever's provided you with an email platform. So every domain should have an SPF record, and in that record is a list of characters, and you'll list in there which platforms are trusted to send as me. And there's some delicate little bits in there to make sure that that's either fully trusted or maybe trusted. But essentially, in most domains, you're going to see Microsoft 365, Bullhorn, whatever email platform you're using. You might see SendGrid records there, whatever. But if you're sending emails from a system sends as your domain, it should be noted in your SPF record, and you say these are the only places I'm sending from. So
so let's assume I'm just sending a email from Outlook 365. That's set up properly, and that should be done already.
Yeah, so Microsoft guide you when you add your domain to add the SPF record to give you the thumbs up that your domain's been added.
Okay.
Not to say it doesn't get broken over time, but
yeah. So, but if I then wanted to send emails out through, as you said, Bullhorn, HubSpot, Sourcewhale, whatever that may look like as part of an automation campaign, or just sending candidate e-shots, that also needs to be coded all correctly with SPF, DKIM, DMARC.
Yeah. So that one SPF record gets edited, and you add in all the sources. So that's the basic, the absolute basic is SPF. Then came along DKIM. So this is essentially trying to evidence that that place actually sent that email to the receiver. Think of it as like an authentication encryption method. If you want to read up about it, new articles come on our website soon. But you should have DKIM set up for every platform that's sending as your domain. So when someone receives your email, they go, right, you've come from that platform. Does that domain list that in the SPF record? Yeah, tick. And does it have DKIM enabled? Yes, it does. Another little tick. And did it pass the DKIM check? Is that the little kind of three-way conversation that happens? Yes, it did. Tick. Right. You're trusted. I trust you more than other emails that don't pass those checks.
So I decided on Tuesday to send out a lovely little newsletter. And I decided that I think I should do a newsletter. I use HubSpot as my CRM, collect all my sort of my leads and everything in that. Because, if it's not tracked, it's not fact. And I've been working with someone else to create a newsletter. And Ben is on my list because he's a great ambassador of what I'm doing. So that I send him my newsletter. 5 minutes later, I got an email. I was oblivious to obviously all of this stuff. Ben, what happened from your point of view as the receiver of my lovely newsletter?
So your email went to my junk folder. And I could see from the message and what it was sent. I had a look at what's called the message header details and email I receive. It's like a little list, like a cookie crumb trail of where that message has been. And I was like, yeah, you've not set up DKIM, and I don't think SPF set up properly either. So we need to go and set those bits up.
I'll be honest with you. I should. I've known Ben well enough. I should have gone there. I should have sent that, and you should have helped me set that up. As a result, the newsletter I sent out, I got like 10% open rate.
Yeah.
Now on other emails I also have my automation station product. We've got a different CRM for that, and the open rates are about 70-80% because we have set the stuff up properly. So in the two levels of communication, when we had this set up, we're talking 70-80%. When I did it on my own and it was a bit of a bodge job, we were down to 10-20%. So it really is worth getting this set up, especially from my point of view. It's crucial to get this done. So let's pretend we've got some viewers on here who are perhaps recruitment consultants, or they're in sales. They're not necessarily a business owner. What advice do you have for them? Because they're not going to have access to the admin panel and that sort of stuff at the moment, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, you can go and check up your own domain. I've got a new feature launched on quinset.co.uk that lets you, under my Power Mail section, that lets you go and assess your domain, and it will tell you whether you've got SPF, DKIM, or DMARC set up. But yeah, if you've got stuff that's going through to junk folders, that's your first indication there's a problem. Is what do you then go back? The problem is you have a recruitment agent will say to their boss that emails are hitting junk. They're like, well, okay, well, try again. Okay, it was only one. It was only four. It was only five. Then another person in the team says, I'm hitting junk. This builds up over a number of days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months of being ignored. And finally someone says, I think we've got a problem.
Yeah.
Now, as a recruitment consultant, everyone loves a dashboard. Am I hitting my numbers? Am I hitting my targets? Have I made the right amount of calls? How many placements have I made this month? How many emails have I sent out? How many calls have I made? All that kind of great stuff. But what people don't necessarily think about when it comes to dashboard is visibility of the domain. Now, this is where DMARC comes in, and this is really cool. I've got a couple of recruitment agents who actually got their DMARC reporting up on a board in the office, so people can actually see the emails that are passing all these technical checks. And DMARC's really, really cool. And you can configure DMARC to send back a report at the end of every day from every email system that's received an email from you and show you how many emails passed or failed SPF or DKIM checks. So let's say as a recruitment consultant, your company's rolled out a new tool and say, hey, go and use this stuff. And there's a dashboard up on the wall. The next day, within a couple of days at most, someone's going to be looking at the board going, why is there 400 emails coming from SendGrid that are failing DKIM checks? Is that the new platform we're using? Right, yeah. So it's making this, you can make this stuff really, really visible. And if you've got team managers who maybe want to have a closer eye on what's going on with that data, again, good DMARC platforms like PowerMail, other ones are available. You can create like little logins for people so they can go and see that dashboard data, just like they can look at the CRM dashboard data.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's when you say something like the different bits of tech, I often see problems with timesheets. So most recruitment agencies, especially do contract, will obviously have a timesheet system outside of what they're doing. And when you're adding a candidate on, or even an approver, you've then got to add them on. And that's another bit of tech. But we don't necessarily think of that because we're not emailing them, but we are, because we're emailing them saying, please submit your timesheets. Here's your login. And I was with a client about 6 months ago, and they were like, oh yeah, they all go into junk. That's just what happens. And I was like, okay, but look, that's really annoying, because when you've got a new contractor on, you want them to come in properly and have a really good start, not, can you go through your junk? Okay, reset your password. It just doesn't, it's not a great candidate experience. So
no,
doing all
the amount
this
of
stuff,
the amount of companies I know, not just recruiters, but a lot of businesses who on their first engagement or early on in the engagement, they'll say to a company, oh, by the way, sometimes emails we send you might get a junk. So can you ask your IT team to add us to the allow list to not mark as a junk? So they're fixing the problem in the wrong way. It's like, well, has anyone actually looked at why they're going to junk in the first place? And the amount of people that just walk past the problem. And it comes, especially timesheets. I won't say who it is, but probably the biggest timesheet in the company in the UK. They were really late in the day of implementing DKIM.
Okay.
Months behind everyone else, years behind most companies. Once it was implemented, and you still have to go through a process with them to get them sorted out. It fixed the junk problem for a lot of people. But all they've been saying to clients and candidates is, oh, by the way, you'll probably find it in your junk. It's just a really embarrassing way to start, isn't it?
It's not a good for candidate experience. Okay, no. So let's move on to some more like the second part of the email. So we've done all this, and unlike me, you've got everything set up properly. And we're gonna start writing the email. So my first question, let's talk about subject lines. What works? What doesn't? Any tips there that we can have?
Absolutely. The first thing I say to anyone is, have you used AI to help you generate your subject lines? People go, well, I'm sending a job spec to someone, and I put the job spec title in the subject line, or I've said job available, whatever it might be. Is that particularly exciting? Because if you can go, and there's a real lovely power command, I love this. Go under ChatGPT. You can basically say, I'm sending an email, which is this. You can paste the email in, create me some compelling subject lines. And if you want to, you could say, use the Ted Nicholas style. So Ted Nicholas is famous for his 27 most powerful words in copywriting. Okay. He's really good, and like ChatGPT understands what that model, that structure is, and it can help you create really compelling, like emotionally charged, kind of trying to get emotional response out of people. Because when you look through your emailing list and you see things, I'm looking like mine now: brochure inquiry, how to remove overly negative thoughts on something, last chance, early bird pricing ends in. There's a couple there that jump out. One of them is the last chance, early bird pricing ends in whatever it's going to be, is more likely to create an emotional response for me rather than brochure inquiry.
Yeah, so, I think So Ted Nicholas, I'm not familiar with him, but I know you mentioned him when we were doing some prep for this call. And do you think we could replicate what he does for the recruitment industry? Obviously, we very rarely would have early bird pricing as such, but would it work? Could we create templates and share them with people?
Yeah, so I did some work with a recruiter a couple of weeks ago, and we were looking at his hit rate, and he said that we got all the technical stuff right, we evidence it's working, it's hitting inboxes, but his open rates were really, really low. So I suggested he split test it. I said, give me your copy. I very rarely go this far. I just had to prove to this guy that it wasn't a technical problem.
Yeah.
He gave me a couple of subject lines and a couple of bits of content, and I rejigged the subject line and the content to follow the rules of marketing. So the rules of marketing are, first thing is you need to catch someone's eye, you need to capture their attention, and you need to trigger something in their heart as well as their head. Next thing you need to do is kind of frame the problem from the customer's perspective. I understand your pain. I understand the situation you're in. Then you want to entice them with and I've got the answer. I can solve this problem for you. And then you might get into details of how we're solving the problem. And any kind of call to action in the email has got to be fairly early on. Yeah, it's got to be obvious. So I rejigged these emails, sent them back to him, and he split test them. His original one, 10% open rate, 1% click rate. Mine, 85% open rate and only a 7% click rate. But more people opened it. And that was the only difference, was the word. Some of it wasn't even the words we used in the content. It was the order we put them in.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, if you want more information on this from Ben or I, in the comments, if you write the word TED, TED, we will send some more information over. If over time we can create some examples, we'll make sure we share that with you as well. So here's an interesting one. Emojis. I love an emoji. I'm using them all over the place. Is there any repercussions or dangers or positives about using these in subject lines or in the body of an email?
So the reality of emojis, essentially, it's just a font. So you go back a long time. Everyone remembers. Do you remember like Webdings and Wingdings, which were?
Oh yes, I remember Wingdings. Those were the days.
Basic Microsoft font that had graphics in it. Emojis are essentially using a font style with those in there. So they are just text. They represent text. It's a publicly available set of fonts that the system looks up and pulls that image through. It's not necessarily an image. For me, though, it depends on who's your target audience, right? Am I going to email the CEO of PepsiCo with a really compelling offer with a face right at the beginning of the message? Maybe not, but it depends on what you're trying to do. So you need to use them wisely, I would say. Depends on your audience.
Okay, that's really interesting, and they won't affect deliverability or anything like that.
No, there's no evidence at all that they affect deliverability. I'd say the only thing they could affect is your open rate.
Interesting.
And if they the problem is if they got overly used and everyone used them, we'd start. I can guarantee if everyone used them and they were in every subject line of every email you ever had, and some people didn't like it, at some point Microsoft will probably add on a feature which is hide emoticons or emojis.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've been doing some work with a client recently, and I was looking at their firstly their job adverts on their CRM and their e-shots that they were sending out to candidates, and they had loads of emojis in, and I was like, are they working? And they said, yeah, and that person's market in particular absolutely loves them, and they have a really good high open rate, and they get a lot of responses from e-shots. So I suppose it's potentially worth giving it a go. Pick your emojis wisely and see what happens. Thank you.
Yeah,
good insights.
It's the same with any language, really, isn't it? It's up there with the do I not use strong language when I'm engaging with a customer. You have to gauge it on the relationship. I work with a lot of recruiters, and there's quite a few F-bombs and whatever bombs get dropped in a lot of conversations, but that's just that it's the conversation that works. I've dropped the F-bomb in a presentation before, right? Captivated the audience at the right time. I used it once in a 20-minute presentation, and it got everyone up and thinking because it really emphasized the point. Would I do that in a customer pitch? No, I wouldn't. There's a time and a place for dropping those things in. But and emojis kind of sit in that category as well, because people will have a view of the appropriateness of that kind of content, I suppose.
Well, give it a go and let us know how you get on. Like if you start using emojis, if you love or hate them, then please let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear back and your experiences on that. So we've got good settings. We've got an epic subject line. We may or may not have used emojis, who knows? Now the body of the email, the main elements. Now you mentioned this a few minutes ago. Like what advice do you have? And I'm going to look at this in a couple of ways. Firstly, just a standard email to a client that you've written on Outlook natively, plain text. What are your thoughts?
So the thing that's going to repeat in every email you send is going to be the email signature.
Mm-hmm.
And people may or may not have an auto email signature adding tool, Exclaimer, Crossware, Rocket Seed, loads of other ones available. Making sure that they've been created correctly and you've not gone hyperlink crazy. And if there are links in there, they're linking back to your own domain. So you don't really want links that are going off to other domains, because you start to kind of technically build up a bit of trust that all this stuff is kind of, there's a relationship here. I kind of get this stuff is relevant.
Would that include like a LinkedIn profile?
Oh, the LinkedIn profile is a weird one. I've removed my direct link to my LinkedIn profile from my email signature. I had a few companies I worked with early on this year that when we removed the LinkedIn profiles, the delivery rate and the hitting the inbox rate went up.
Okay.
The reason that is because if you think there's a lot of bots out there that's sitting within email systems that are checking the links, safe link checkers, could be natively within 365, or they could have like, Proofpoint or the 100 other ones that are available. I can't remember off the top of my head, can't remember now. But they're essentially checking those links, and they open up a little sandbox environment and make sure there's nothing untoward going on with them. The problem if you open up, and you'll see it yourself, you're going up a LinkedIn profile in a guest window in Chrome, where you're not signed in to LinkedIn, it comes up with a login page.
Yeah.
I mean, the website can't be scanned. So, and I think this isn't necessarily that was the thing that was causing the problem. I think there'd been a history of issues. The domain reputations were a little bit wobbly, and we were doing everything we could to drop it down. Remove the LinkedIn profiles, and the rate went up. So I don't bother with mine. I've created a free Linktree account that's got my LinkedIn profile in there and some blogs and links to other stuff. And then I drive people to my Linktree account, which passes every single check because it's completely scannable as a website.
I love that. And Linktree is completely free to set up, and you can link to lots of different. If you ever go on to TikTok or Instagram and you see a lot of people have that at the top of theirs because it links to their online shop and various other places. Thank you. That's really interesting. And just quickly, I'm going to jump. We've had a couple of questions in the comments. Loads of people have written the word TED. Thank you very much. We're going to get some more resources over to you. And we'll keep checking on this. So if you're watching this on demand, because it will be recorded both here on LinkedIn and on YouTube, keep commenting and we'll make sure we get those resources over. So yeah, the email signature one is very interesting. And I often get caught out. I do quite a lot of work within automation, which is my next question. And I get excited because I think, 70% click-through rate. We've nailed it. And then I go into it and they've just gone through to the LinkedIn profile, or they've gone on to unsubscribe because that was a click or something. And you're like, oh, the thing we wanted them to click on is not quite right. So actually I was reflecting on this before our call and thought, I wonder if we need to remove some of the other links. So the actual click is more verified, if that makes sense, and accurate.
Yeah. So generally when they're covering that subject line bit, people ask me about unsubscribe links, where they should be. Now, in a one-to-one email, there shouldn't be an unsubscribe link because you're just emailing someone.
Yeah.
And we all know there's loads of tools out there recruiters use that emulate the one-to-one sending. So they don't necessarily put an unsubscribe link in. If you are sending marketing messages out, you want people, this sounds crazy, you want people who don't want you to unsubscribe. Because if they don't easily unsubscribe, what will they do? Mark you as junk. And you don't want all these algorithms for all these platforms out there to say, hey, loads of people are marking you as junk. So probably all my other customers, they're probably going to think you're junk as well. I'm going to push you into the junk folder for everyone.
And just and this is my understanding. I'm no GDPR expert. And if anyone knows a GDPR expert who can come and join me in one of these, then please let me know. My understanding is if they have unsubscribed to your email, they've unsubscribed to your marketing emails. That doesn't mean that you can't call them regarding a role that's interested. They're not saying, please take me off your database. They're just saying, I don't want to get these emails.
Yeah, I've unsubscribed to Amazon marketing emails, but I still want to use Amazon. I've unsubscribed to a couple of my referral partners, unsubscribed to their newsletters because I fell into their marketing funnel, and I don't need to be in a marketing funnel. I'm well beyond the bottom of their funnel right now.
Me?
No, I love yours. I don't unsubscribe to lots because there's some really, really good ideas in a lot of emails I get from a lot of people. I think I could use that in my business. But yeah, if someone unsubscribes, they're unsubscribing from a particular marketing funnel, right? They've gone through and if you've got it set up properly, I don't want to hear any of your marketing things. It doesn't mean that you can't email them and say, "Hi, Dave, how you doing? I saw you at this event the other day. It'd be really good to catch up." Right? It doesn't stop you emailing someone directly or picking up the phone and speaking to them. But if they feel as though they're in your marketing funnel, and this is where it comes to content, I did an experiment with a recruiter last year, and I said, okay, room of people, teaching them about email deliverability. And I picked one of the guys and said, right, send me an email because I'm a client that you want and you've got a brilliant candidate. Send me an email selling that candidate to me because you think I've got a role available for them. We carried on chatting. This guy sent an email and I brought it up, and it was brilliant. Hi, Ben, how you doing? Was thinking about you the other day because I came across this guy. He's absolutely fantastic. I know you hire in this area. He's amazing. Call me. So we did that. So after lunch, I turned to the same guy and I said, right, now what I want you to do is to create an email template we're going to use to push out to 500 clients selling these 2-3 candidates that you've got. And I want you to just write it in Outlook, but then send the message to me. And we put them side by side, right? And it's completely different language, completely different tone, massively unauthentic. He overthought the email. Yeah. So when you're setting up your templates or you're putting together an email to send out to 100 people to push a candidate or 100 candidates to push a role, why would you write it any differently if you're sending it to one person? Because the platform you're using is making it look like it's being sent to one person. So just be yourself, or be the best version of yourself professionally, obviously, as a recruiter. Don't be that weekend guy. But it's just about making sure that you're using the right platform and speaking in the right way. And again, it massively changes your open rates. I get emails from recruiters because I'm on a lot of test systems, and I've feedback every now. That you nailed that. That one was bollocks. That one sounded like you'd spat it out of ChatGPT. This one was actually someone thinking about it and writing an email naturally as them. So don't be afraid to do it. And you don't necessarily have to use other people's templates. So Jane writes some templates that Bob is using. It doesn't sound like Bob. So should he be using Jane's templates? Should he be writing his own version of those?
Yeah, because everyone is good. Most recruiters will have different markets with different candidates who want to be communicated with in a different way.
Yeah, and that candidate will know 2 weeks later you send them the same template with the same thing for a different job, and they're like, oh, yeah, right, I'm in the system. So other bits with content, think about the links you're putting in, minimize the number of links, make sure they're valid, try and get people to go to your own website if you can. Don't use brightly, it sounds crazy that people do this, don't use brightly colored text on black or very dark background in email marketing, because that's it just screams scam. There is I think there's even a setting in one of the big email filters which is red text on black background, spam. That's it. Wow. And attachments as well. Recruiters send a lot of attachments, might send out a PDF with a job spec. Please make sure those PDFs are not password protected, and make sure you don't have any clickable links in the PDF or the Word document or whatever you're sending. That's the trick of scammers and phishing attacks, is embedding links within attachments. So again, a lot of email filters just filter them out. So you might have your website on the bottom of the PDF, but don't make it a clickable link. Right, just remove all the links from inside those documents.
Crikey. Wow, I never knew that was a thing. Wow, you taught me a lot. My final question is, within something, let's take an automation tool, 9 times out of 10, you have, most automation tools these days, you have the option to do plain text, which is a standard email, or HTML rich text. I normally, from a personal preference, when we're doing bulk automations, for those of you who know me well enough, I always say, I'd rather be sent this in plain text because it is more one-to-one. No offense, but no recruiter is going to send a lovely, highly formatted HTML marketing email to one person. So there's that balance. So I personally prefer plain text, unless it's something really obvious like an NPS score or a newsletter. But what are your thoughts, and does that affect anything?
Yeah, leave the marketing to the marketing. And when you're trying to spark up a conversation with someone, do it the way you said, basically. So if you've got a newsletter going out, you want it framed correctly, you're publicizing, advertising, there's a sale on, whatever it is, people expect to get a marketing message, and they know they might have their name in there somewhere. They know this is marketing. When you're sending someone a message, you're trying to spark up a conversation with them. You're trying to have a one-to-one conversation with them. You're trying to create that one-to-one conversation. So speak to them like a grown-up, right? Speak to them in the way that they're used to being spoken in email as a grown-up, which is to send them an email. It doesn't need to be the more bells and whistles you put on. It's just distractions. Those lovely formatted marketing messages, formatted things you get, advertising, sale on now, are all pointing to a big red click now button in the middle going, this is the thing, buy now, buy now, buy now. You're not necessarily trying to create the same response out of the person that you're speaking to, or looking like you're speaking to them on one-to-one basis. Yes, there is a bit more of a react now and engage with me, but you're trying to speak to them. And yes, a picture speaks 1,000 words, etc., etc. But if I got an email, which is a marketing email that said, best job ever now, sign up, best ever salary, no, scam. No, they're going to selling from home rubbish email, get rid of it.
Yeah, okay. We've had a couple of questions in. So Zosha has said plain text emails are also more accessible to people who use technology such as screen readers. I'd never considered that, so that's really useful to know. And Bo has sent a question on plain text versus HTML. Does the fact that it is HTML formatted, but it's just black and white text, make a difference to the deliverability? So if it's a HTML email but looks plain text, does that change anything?
No, HTML emails make up the largest percentage of emails that are going around. And when we talk about HTML emails, really we're talking about the marketing formatted colorful thing. I know it's not quite the right phrase, Bo. So it's when you send an email from Outlook, it's by default, it's in HTML format. That's what enables you to have your lovely signature appended at the bottom. Hopefully you are using HTML based email signatures and not just making it in Word and copying, pasting in. That's another problem. But yeah, just plain black or very dark text. Some companies like a slightly off black text, gets slightly easier on the eye. Please don't put backdrops on your emails. Don't put color schemes. Don't put fancy wordy, squirrely things. It's just distracting.
Okay. And Gavin has just raised a question about CV. So obviously, normally, and this is my best practice, what I say to my clients is when you're formatting a CV, please make sure you have your recruiter's contact details on there to obviously make sure if this gets forwarded 100 times, printed, handed to the HR person, say interview this person, they know exactly who it is from. From a CV that could be sometimes 7 pages long. We love one of those, don't we, recruiters? How can we just make sure that we're giving our emails and our CV submissions the best possible chance when you've got a large attachment and one that might have a lot of links and other information in it as well then?
So 100-page Word document with nothing but text will be a really, really tiny file. What can make them oversized is when you start to drop, and it might be like a really high resolution logo you've pulled off the shared drive and dropped in and not realized it was a 3 meg one that was supposed to be for marketing. You can compress images in Word, PowerPoint, Excel, literally right click the image, compress, you compress all the images. So you can keep the file size down there. But yeah, it's just making sure that you don't put the image in and then hyperlink the message like you would hyperlink the image like you would in your email. You don't want any of those links in there.
So if I was sending a CV with my contact details at the bottom, it would just say holly@restack.uk. I couldn't click that.
No.
Okay.
If you go and type it into Word, you'll see it will try and auto create a link. Right click it and remove the link, remove the hyperlink from it.
Wow. Fascinating. And there's also on this subject, so it's quite a hot topic at the moment, there's a lot of new CV formatters coming to the market with various AI capabilities. Some of them have got landing pages. So you would be sending a link to an external website that hosting the lovely CV. Any issues surrounding that?
So there's a mixture of 2 different platforms here. There's the one which you'll then send a link off to a third-party platform. So let's say it's quinset.co.uk, and it might send off to quinset.websiteviewer.com or whatever. That's not your website, it's not your domain, it's someone else's. The other ones will allow you to have created a subdomain for your domain. So it'd be cv.quinset.co.uk. They're going to be marginally better than the other one, essentially, because you're keeping all those hyperlinks within your domain. there's a kind of consistency. But we all know, we all send emails to people with links to other websites, right? So we know it's okay to be sending people links to other sites. I think it's when you litter your emails with loads of links off to these sites, and just make sure that whatever platform you're using is reputable, that the website itself has got a good reputation. Because if you're linking into websites with a bad reputation, that affects the reputation of the email you sent with a link inside it.
Gosh, there's a lot to take in, isn't there? Like this is all very new to me, and I never really considered the importance or knew any of this. But there's so much out there that needs to be done, because email marketing and getting this stuff out and getting CVs over to the right people is more important than ever. Wow. I hope everybody has found this really useful. Just from my point of view, Ben, like, it's been amazing having you on. If people want to know more and want to reach out to you, what should they do and how should they get in touch?
So obviously I'm on LinkedIn /Ben Fielding. Everyone can find me on there. If you want to learn more about what I do from an email deliverability perspective, you go to quinset.co.uk and you'll see a whole section on email deliverability. Talks about my PowerMail platform. I've got professional services, a couple of case studies, and coming soon, my learning hub. So I'm pouring all of what I can pull out of my brain into content for my website, so people can learn this stuff themselves. Some of it's really, really techy and really dry. Some of it's going to be a bit more visually engaging. Some of it I can't deliver online, in written format in a way that people can engage with without getting too really geeky. So apologies for that. Yeah. On the PowerMail part of my website, you can go on there. You can run a test on your domain. You can get a report on the. I'll be launching it today on my website. You can get a report on your domain. It tells you basically whether or not your SPF, your DKIM, your DMARC is all set up as it should be, and then a few tips and tricks on how to improve that.
Wow. Well, what we'll do is we'll share, make sure all the links are in the comments so people can access what you are doing. If you are struggling at the moment for getting really good automations out there, I am hosting a business development bootcamp starting the 15th of August. You're going to get 4 automations that are going to completely transform your business development, get you warm leads, engage lapsed clients, a whole load of fun stuff like that. And I'm going to be with you walking it through every step of the way. So if you were interested, I've put the link in the comments again. Please do get in touch if you want to know more. And I'm going to be hosting one all around data in the autumn as well. So if you want to make sure you've got your database and your system up to date with the right people, then you know where we are. And before we head off, I've just got a lovely comment here from Bo. Thank you so much, Bo. Can confirm Ben is great. He definitely knows his stuff and is very easy to talk to. Very much looking forward to the Learning Hub. So look, we will leave you all for now. Ben, it has been an absolute pleasure. Like, you've taught me a lot. And I've got a whole load of stuff that I need to look into and sort out myself. For those of you who have said TED in the comments, give us a couple of days. We're going to get you as much information over around subject lines and whatever we can do to get your emails going to the right people, opened, and getting you guys the results that you deserve. But thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. And we'll be back very, very soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.